Welcome back to the Chronicles of the King podcast, where we take a deep dive into the life and legacy of Elvis Presley. I'm Megan.
And I'm Tessa, and we are two 20-something Elvis fans dedicated to keeping his legacy alive with a research-based approach.
Whether you're a diehard Elvis fan or simply curious about a man who changed the course of music and culture, you're in the right place.
We are here to unpack the myths, explore the music, and get to the heart of Elvis's enduring impact.
Every other week, we'll bring you research, untold stories, and fresh perspectives on Elvis's journey. From his humble beginnings to his legendary performances, we're here to shed light on it all.
So settle in for a podcast made with a lot of TLC for the man himself, one story at a time. Hey, hi guys, welcome back. Today we are getting closer to our finish line at the end of our series on Elvis's movies. So today we're going to be talking about four of Elvis's later 60s movies, so 66, 67. Paradise Hawaiian Style. We have, I already forgot, Spinout.
Yep.
Okay.
Easy Come, Easy
Go. Oh my God. Easy Come, Easy Go, and Double Trouble. So starting out with Paradise Hawaiian Style, which you can probably tell from the title was intended to be a sort of sequel to Blue Hawaii. It was not quite a sequel. It was a little lackluster, shall we say. But this came out June 15th, 1966. It was directed by Michael Moore. The production and distribution company was our guy, Hal Wallace, and Paramount Pictures. Our cast includes Susanna Lee, James Shigeta, Donna Butterworth, Mariana Hill, and Irene Tsu. And of course, Elvis is the main guy.
Of course.
So
the log line, and like she said, this is supposed to be, I think, a sequel to Blue Hawaii. Was it? Absolutely not, because you can tell by the log line, which also I have qualms with this name, but Rick Richards is a helicopter pilot who wants to set up a charter flying service in Hawaii. Along the way, he makes some friends, including a young Hawaiian girl and her father, romances Judy Hudson, and sings a few songs.
Classic.
Typical. So, I feel like the plots that we've been doing have been getting shorter and shorter, and I think the themes have become non-existent.
Yeah, I got rid of those. There is womanizing Elvis,
ladies man,
singing, ladies man, happy ending. Those are the only themes we have.
Couple songs, singing.
There's
usually some kind of redemption.
There's some tension, usually some kind of fight scene.
He punches a man in every single movie. I gotta say that.
Pretty much.
So as for the plot, it was pretty much covered in the log line, but we'll do a little bit of a rundown here. So obviously you have Elvis. He plays Rick Richards. Again, I don't like that name, but all right.
Goofy.
He's returning home. He was a pilot. Well, he is a pilot with an airline. He was. That was very Yoda spoken. I'm so sorry for that.
With an airline. He was.
With an airline. He was. Yes, he worked for an airline. Obviously, because he doesn't always follow the rules, he got fired, and now he's back in Hawaii, and he's looking for more business. He's looking for a job. Thus, the flying charter business with helicopters.
Sure.
Yep.
And he and his friend Danny go into the helicopter charter business together. And you would think that maybe this Rick Richards lad would be trying to focus on his business, but it's Elvis. Sorry, I mean, it's Rick, but it's Elvis that we're talking about. So he's a little flirty with every woman who crosses his path. He's also reckless. He gets his helicopter grounded by the aviation authorities. And much like, I would say this reminds me of, it happened at the World's Fair. There's a little girl who steals the show. So
of course,
it was also giving like Lilo and Stitch, because I think just because of the Hawaiian of it all, and then also the dancing, like she sings a little song and dances, and that just reminded me of like the hula scene in Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, there was a lot of like over the top like numbers.
We are in Hawaii. Let's do a number. Yeah.
I know. It's like, why don't we just put him in a boat and like float him down a stream again, like
Again.
Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that sorry, now we're really getting off track. I feel like with the plot, but again, what plot?
Mhm.
Sorry. That final number, I feel like most of the movie budget was spent on that final number.
I literally watched it yesterday, and I just have
It's
a
like
vision in my head.
it's like the like really big mountain, like there's like waterfalls, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
like bunch of dancers. There's like a drum. Then Elvis is like standing on a drum and he's like dancing, and then it's like zoom
Yeah.
out. Yeah, that thing.
Sure.
Anyhow, yeah. So basically, it's like let's start a charter business. Oh, but like look at all these girls.
Girls, girls, girls.
Girls, girls, girls. Um, that was pretty much it. They get stranded on an island,
Yeah.
and so he has to be like the
Heroic.
hero and save the day, even though he's not supposed to be flying a helicopter.
Right.
The end.
And so in classic Elvis movie fashion, don't worry, everything works out. He keeps both his business and his like little harem of admirers. Sorry, harem, wrong movie, but kind of not. It's kind of the same, but just this one's in Hawaii. And less, actually, this one is less trippy than harem scarum. I will give it that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like there's, at least they tried to be a plot, but it was very much the formula plot.
Absolutely.
So this is where some things I feel like the behind the scenes is always a little bit more interesting, at least to me, than the actual movies themselves. So they filmed some of the movie in Oahu, Hawaii. So that was kind of cool because it's, you know, an off the studio set kind of thing. And I guess the Memphis Mafia loved that. Like a lot of them wrote about it.
It's a vacation.
Elvis took a group of 10 people with him out to Hawaii, and they stayed at the Ilikai, I believe it was, this hotel, which was pretty bougie, and I'm sure they had a great time. And something that I thought was interesting, and I believe in Peter Guralnick's book, he's like, the only interesting thing that happened is that Jerry Schilling met his first wife there. On the set of the movie. So Jerry met Sandy Cavello on the set of Paradise Hawaiian Style. She was one of the dancers in the movie, and then she was his first wife. So
and you can read more about that whole story from Jerry Schilling in his book Me and a Guy Named Elvis. So that's always fun. Also, when they were in Hawaii, they visited the memorial for the USS Arizona, which, if you remember, I believe it was 1960. Am I correct on that year?
60 or 61, I can't remember.
60 or 61. You know, Elvis did the fundraiser for the USS Arizona. So they got to see that again. And Jerry Schilling says, it meant a great deal to Elvis to be able to give something back to his country that way. For all of the Colonel's usual attention to the bottom line, this had been a situation where he too wanted to be as charitable as possible. Elvis, the Colonel, Vernon, and the guys were given a special tour of the memorial by an admiral using his private boat. I could see how moved both Elvis and the Colonel were by the powerful tribute to fallen servicemen that their efforts had made possible. I remember standing next to Elvis at a rail that looked over the submerged ship, and we were shocked to see that the oil from the engines was still bubbling up to the surface of the water. Now, this is in quotes from Elvis. Those guys are still down there, he said very softly. So there's just some fun things that they did, somber things that they did. I feel like more as a distraction from what they were doing on set.
Yeah, like the movie was like second to other things that they wanted to do. Like Elvis wanted to visit this memorial that he'd helped raise money for, and you know, the Colonel too. And I also said that additionally, Elvis punches Red in one scene. Red plays a character named Rusty because Red, Rusty, you know, we got it.
Makes sense.
So he punches his little friend. And then in Peter Guralnick's biography, Careless Love, which is the second part of his two-part biography, He says, quote, after much harassing, the colonel had finally gotten Wallace to come up with a $90,000 bonus on top of Elvis's $200,000 salary, with the bonus to be split 50-50 between Elvis and the colonel. I just thought that was interesting behind the scenes of like the financial side of things of how the breakdown of the movies was going, financially speaking.
Yeah. Also, this really surprised me after coming off of Harem Scarum, and for that he got $1 million. And on this, they're like only 200,000, which again, 200,000, yes, it's like a decent amount of money for this type of picture, but like in comparison to what he was making, just pointing that out.
Yeah. And then this was also interesting from Careless Love. So Elvis was, quote, Elvis was ill the week that he recorded the soundtrack, which Wallace might have deduced was the reason that he refused to bark like a dog during one of the songs. Movie news correspondent Derek Hunter reported that the star was, quote, too sick to present himself for wardrobe fittings, and that when he arrived in Hawaii, it was, quote, without his usual smiling face. When Elvis finally went to work in front of the cameras, he was not his usual patient and polite self. He continually grumbled about the way his privacy was always being disturbed. He beefed about the circus that always surrounded him and how he'd hoped to be able to get away from it all in Hawaii. So you kind of see some disillusionment. He was sick while recording the soundtrack, which includes the really good song, A Dog's Life.
Sick.
Oh, yeah, I'd be sick too.
He was sick of the song, is what I like to say.
Yeah, correct.
I know Tessa talks about like sometimes she like drifts in and out of the movies. And now I feel like the same thing where you thought we're like, oh yeah, there's a singing camel and or talking camel and Harem Scarum. Did he bark like a dog?
Don't know.
So I honestly, like most of it, I was trying to let it go in one ear and out the other, just because I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, but Dog's Life was a rough one. That was a rough soundtrack song.
No, and you just hear it. You
can just hear in the soundtrack that he is like, I do not want to sing these songs. I'm just doing it because they're paying me and I have to be here. So
exactly. And we got more from Alana Nash's book, Elvis and the Memphis Mafia. This is coming from Marty. Marty always dishes all the tea, but he said Elvis was steamed about this picture because Blue Hawaii had grossed all those millions, and the talk in Hollywood was that Hal Wallace used the profits to finance Beckett with Peter O'Toole and Richard Burton. Meanwhile, Elvis kept getting stuck in these crappy beach and bikini pictures. There was a lot of tension on the set. The director, Mickey Moore, was unhappy with Elvis because he thought he looked fat. This was the first time a director had actually said anything about it. His face might have looked a little fuller, but I don't think he looked fat. But if he did, it might have been because he started experimenting with downers. And then I am not very good with pronunciations with different kinds of medicines.
Secanals,
Yellow jackets.
So Marty kind of deduces that maybe Elvis was starting to get into like taking prescription like downers at this time, and maybe that's why he appears a little bit groggy in this movie. And Marty always, is I would say the Memphis Mafia member who most frequently talks about prescription usage, because if you've read Marty's book Portrait of a Friend, he talks very candidly about addiction and his own addiction, and how, everyone in this kind of group, not everyone, but that it was very fueled by Elvis was convinced he was doing something to help himself or to escape from these shitty movies he was making. And I think Marty has a really interesting perspective on the prescription usage, and in particular behind the scenes of like these movies you see where like the movie is bad and his intake of these substances increases, the worse the movies get, I feel like.
I know. I definitely see it too. I think you can, like Tessa always says, I think you can hear it as well. So behind the scenes stuff and the movie stuff and the things you hear definitely correlate together.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last kind of bit of information, one of the two. During this time, Elvis was getting more and more into his spiritual search. So just as things in the movies were getting more and more boring, he was trying to find outside things to keep him busy, keep him interested. And so he actually took Priscilla to visit, and I apologize for my pronunciation. Is it Diamata?
I think it's Diamata.
Diamata. There we go. To the Self-Realization Park. And that is
so it's part of the Self-Realization Fellowship, which is a particular branch of spiritual searching that Elvis was getting into, specifically fueled by his relationship with Larry Geller that he started, this hairdresser who started doing his hair around this time. And he really got into less like Western ideas of religion and spiritual searching.
Yeah. So he's looking more towards like the Eastern stuff of like meditation, like self-realization.
And a week after the crew got back from Hawaii, I just included this because I thought like it's interesting parallel. So a week after the crew got back from Hawaii, the Beatles came to visit Elvis at the Perugaway house. And they had just released the movie Help. Like they were kind of on top. They were doing the music they wanted to be doing. They did some kind of movies, that were like whatever. But the movies were, the soundtracks for the movies were songs that they had written. And I just thought it was interesting, like the difference between, they were still controlling like their music because they were the songwriters and the singers.
Yeah.
Whereas Elvis is like not really controlling that. He's singing A Dog's Life for this movie. So we definitely should do a deep dive episode about that occasion of them meeting and like the background of all that.
They have all the information that we can.
But I just thought it was interesting. It was like a week after Paradise Hawaiian Style wrapped filming. So contextually, we see what was the two different directions that these like famous people are going in.
So now we get into the reception of the film, how it was perceived when it was released. And from Variety, this was published June 8th, 1966. The first quote we have is, "How Wallace returns singer to the island state in this gaily begarbed and following musical. Seldom has the panorama and terrain of Hawaii been utilized in such lush advantage, beautifully caught in the finest tints of technicolor, and providing Star with an atmospheric backdrop for the type of yarn he's been suited for. Girls and songs, it's a natural for Presley fans who seem to be legion and carries strong exploration potential."
Yeah. And the next one is, "One particular sequence is a comedy gem. Presley loses control of his chopper while transporting 6 dogs of various breeds to a canine show on another island. Simultaneously, the helicopter stunting takes on a load of thrills, some of the best ever filmed for this form of locomotion." I mean, they seem to be like into it, I guess.
Yeah. So I will say,
surprising.
Like, researching the kind of like the reception, like look at a lot of like movie critics, what they're saying about movies in different newspaper articles, just different magazines. I will say Variety, for the most part, is very, very, very generous with their reviews versus the New York Times. Brutal.
Yeah.
That's just throwing that out there.
All right. So the next movie we have is Spinout, which I would say is probably the best of this.
Yep.
These 4 that we're looking at today. It was fine. It was entertaining. I mean, it was good. Like I would put it on in the background. It's not like I didn't roll my eyes too much. A little, but
barking at least.
There's no barking. So this was released October 17th, 1966. It was directed by classic Norman Taurog, produced and distributed by Uterp Incorporated and MGM. Our cast includes Shelley Fabares, Diane McBain, Barris. What? How do you say it?
Shelley. I mean, I've always said Shelley Fabares.
Shelley Fabares. Oh, that makes more sense. Diane McBain, Deborah Wally, Dodie Marshall, Jack Malini, and Will Hutchins. And our little logline is a singing race car driver has to choose among three amorous females.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They had to make him both a race car driver and somehow like a professional, like that's his only profession, a singer.
Yeah.
Like we just had to do it, both of them, multitasking.
Yeah. Multitasking king.
Yeah, and so the character he plays is shocker, Mike.
I don't think McCoy. I think it's McCoy in this one.
I think so. Yes, but still, Mike.
How
So
many
like I said,
movies does he do where his name is
I think
Mike?
we're gonna have to do a tally at the end.
Mike Edwards. There's Mike.
This one.
This one. Isn't he Mike in
And it happened.
No, not.
I think he's Mike in It Happened at the World's Fair.
I'll find out.
We're gonna find out. Okay. So anywho, like we said, he is both a race car driver for some reason, and he is a singer. That's the whole premise of the movie. He's also about
in four movies. Because in Blue Hawaii, oh no, that's Chad. Okay, this is lying to me. 3. Because Fun in Acapulco, Mike Winkren, Spinout, Mike McCoy, and then he's Mike Edwards. There's Mike Edwards in It Happened at the World's Fair, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so 3.
What's the answer? Anyhow, so and then he's got like these 3 women that are after them. And Tessa, would you like to explain the 3 different women?
Yeah, so it's a love quadrangle because a love triangle was just not shapes, a love triangle was just not enough, and every single woman in this movie wants to marry him. Fair enough. So we have 3 women. We have Cynthia Foxhue, played by Shelley. How are we saying it?
Fabrez. I mean, that's how I've always said it.
Okay, Shelley Fabrez. And she is a spoiled rich girl, and her dad owns this big car company, and she is dead set on making Elvis her husband. Like, it's a business transaction. Miss Girl is not taking no for an answer.
No.
Then we have Diana St. Clair, who is classy and serious and writes books about men. Specifically, was like the male's guide to mating or something is one of them.
Yeah.
It's giving like a ye oldie Carrie Bradshaw, which I know Megan hasn't seen Sex in the City, but I
know the premise.
Right. And guess what? She wants to research Mike,
perfect man.
Yeah, to find her for her book about the perfect man. And in the end, she's going to marry the perfect man. And she's like, I've decided you're the perfect man. And then we've got third lady, Les, and that's short for Lester or Leslie.
Lester. Nope, it's Lester. Lester.
Because that's the joke is like, she's a tomboy, and she plays the drums, and she's in his band. They're always calling her a bro and dude and guy, and she's like, I'm literally a girl.
I'm a girl.
Yeah, and he stays dodging these 3 ladies throughout the movie. So,
there shall be no wedding bells for Mike.
No.
So yeah. And then the whole thing with Shelley's character wants Elvis to sing for her, so her dad's like buying him for the night, kind of awkward. And then that's kind of like how she gets hooked on him. So that was like a big premise of the movie. And then it's like, oh, I want him to be the driver of one of my race cars.
Because he's a famous singer, so, and also apparently a race car driver. So
it'd be good promo, apparently. Yep. So then at the end, it's kind of like a, what is it? Reverse logical thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so then it ends up being kind of like a bet because everybody wants to marry the girls that are after Elvis. And he's like, you can have them.
Yeah. He remains The Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, so I thought this movie, it was a little bit interesting that they're playing on the whole, like, he doesn't want to get married. He doesn't want to be tied down thing. When
I
this
think
is
I'm
like
thinking the same thing.
it's not that long before him and Priscilla get married. Like, obviously, this was already like
What do we say the release date was? October
60,
17,
yeah.
66.
So, like,
Okay. They were almost
8, 9
engaged.
months.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So, marriage is kind of like on the mind. And there were a lot of like, I would say subtle, but they were not subtle to me. But I guess Megan was dissociating while she was watching this
It kind of was.
because
I have seen this one.
she didn't notice
Mhm.
that they were making so many Elvis references. Like, they said hound dog
Yeah.
so many times. It was unnecessary. You can just call a dog a dog. Like, it's okay. They were talking about getting on the Ed Sullivan show, and
Mhm.
they're like, oh, if we make it big, we'll get on the Ed Sullivan show. And I think it's interesting, ever since Tara, our friend Tara, mentioned it, that now we see a shift of he's not like the only singer, like he's in a band. And it's interesting because he just hit that the Beatles, and the Beatles are on this rise, and that they're kind of like obviously trying to channel some of that energy. So I just thought that was interesting. But
Definitely.
it's
Boy bands are on
cars.
the rise.
Yeah, it's cars, it's rock and roll, it's a man running from commitment. It's kind of Elvis, if you really think about it.
Really is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And again, as always, the behind the scenes is just a little bit more fun than the plot. Okay. So we shall get into it. All right. So
the real life was crazier than a movie. So.
it really was. And that's why people wrote books about it and made movies.
Yeah.
So there you go. Okay. So first things first. So Elvis had a retired Greyhound coach customized for him in his cross-country journeys. So I know people probably seen the pictures of those. And
starring Priscilla. It's like the Elvis movie,
Great. Now they're just gonna play on a.
I'm just picturing this,
and they're just doing the weird dance. I'm sorry. Like, all the guys are like popping out of the weird bunks. Okay.
Yes.
Anywho,
sorry.
we have a quote from Careless Love is Be a Girl in this book. In the book, it says, tempers flared at one point when Red, who had never made any secret of his contempt for Larry, again, Larry was very prevalent at this time, took a swing at him before being restrained by the other guys. Elvis, on the other hand, had maintained spirited physical dialogues with several of his co-stars.
Yeah, so he was talking a lot about the spiritual side of things still, like with his co-stars, which I know for when we did the background of Girl Happy, like Shelley Fabre said that they talked about spiritual searching. So this is from Careless Love again. It says, quote, he genuinely liked Shelley Fabre's from with whom he had worked on Girl Happy. He gave Diane McBain an underlined copy of the book, The Impersonal Life, and spoke with her of the spiritual precepts of Yogananda. And he set out to save Deborah Wally, who had previously played the leading role in Gidget Goes Hawaiian and was presently lost in a sea of spiritual doubt and confusion. He told her, look, we've only got this moment together, so let's have it completely. No holding back, no wasting time on trivialities. I've got the word. I want to give it to you. I'm a man. I'm not a woman. I'm a soul, a spirit, a force. I have no interest in anything of this world. I want to live in another dimension entirely. It was, according to Wally, the turning point of her life. I just think it's interesting that we see this correlation of like the quality of movies and like he's getting so sick of this, like back to the back doing movies that he's searching for other things. But Elvis being Elvis, he can't do anything half-assed. He gets like a little too into it. He gets like
100%.
He's down.
Like he goes, this is going to be my personality now.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But that's how I feel about Elvis. So it's like,
don't we all?
After I watched the Elvis movie, like this is going to be my personality now.
You know.
This is me now. So hyper
I make a podcast now. I go to Graceland all the time,
explaining this to new people when I meet them. They're like,
like I don't understand.
Like, why are you going to Memphis? I'm like,
what is there
cool
to do
stuff? There's like barbecue and like the bass
Elvis and Yeah, and Elvis.
Oh yeah, I guess he was there
Yeah.
too. Who's that again? So
Uh, don't really know. It's kind of a tough one. Anyhow, then now that we took that rabbit trail,
mhm,
back on course. Okay, so as we said, Elvis got that Greyhound bus, and so that's what they would take to California, back to Memphis, and
mhm.
on one occasion when they are driving back to Memphis, this is right after filming Spinout.
Yeah, and this is
After
from Careless
after it
Love
came
as
out.
well.
Yeah, and it's from Careless Love. So this is a quote from that book. Outside Little Rock, they picked up George Klein, by the way,
Mhm.
on WHBQ 560 radio frequency. He was playing the country tearjerker "Green Green Grass of Home" by Tom Jones, whom they all liked. And Elvis stopped the bus and had one of the guys call George and ask him to play the song again. When they got a little further down the road, Elvis put in another call, and this kept up the rest of the way to Memphis, with George dedicating each play to Elvis and all the boys, and Elvis growing visibly more affected by the song's portrait of a condemned man's imagined reunion with his loved ones and the idealized small town life he had forever left behind. Everyone got a good laugh out of the incident except for Red, who had brought Elvis the song the year before and been told by Elvis it was far too country for him even to consider recording it.
And then obviously
Yeah.
Elvis does record this song. I'm not sure what year. I meant to look it up.
Oh, I
I'll
want
look it
to
up.
bet that it was
What do you think?
69.
69?
That's my bet.
Wrong.
What was it?
75 it came out. So
Why does it got like a late 60s vibe to it?
did Elvis record Green Green Grass at Home March 11th, 1975.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was on the Elvis Today album.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Okay. Well,
But I know you're saying it's giving like what is that? The one album that's like not from Elvis in Memphis, but it has, I can picture the cover right now. It's driving me nuts. But it has another song that has that vibe, and
maybe that's what I'm thinking.
So like Inherit the Wind, that album that has like Inherit the Wind. You know what I'm saying? I have to find it now.
Real-time research.
Yeah, it's Elvis back in Memphis, and there's the song and the grass won't pay no mind.
Maybe that's what I'm getting, with.
And Stranger in My Own Hometown, like those are on.
Yeah, it has the same vibe to it.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I was getting it mixed up with the songs. Okay, that was better.
I validated you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, also, I like that. I really like hearing firsthand accounts. So if you want to hear the firsthand account of this story, George's book, and he was I feel like people in Memphis knew what he was talking about when this was going down. He would say like, dedicating this to a friend, like on his way back home, stuff like that. He never said, "Oh, I'm dedicating this to Elvis," or "On my way back from Hollywood," blah 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 blah. Yeah. It was just, "I'm dedicating this to my friend." So, just a little something there.
I love that. So now a little bit about the reception. So Variety is, very positive usually. Soft. So this is from October 19th, 1966. They said, quote, "Spinout is an entertaining Elvis Presley comedy tuner in which 4 gals compete for his attention between 9 new songs," which I don't think it was 4 gals. It was 3 gals. But
they didn't do their...
Obviously, they didn't know their shapes. They said it was a love pentagon. Duh.
Apparently.
So, well produced by Joe Pasternak and directed with verve by Norman Turog, Pink has Elvis as the leader of a touring rock and roll group. Racing car plot line adds for another lure to the young market, while many subsidy comedy situations maintain interest. Presley fans will rally to the BO, and other drop-ins will likewise be diverted by this Metro release.
And again, now you can see firsthand the comparison between Variety and the New York Times. So the New York Times, December 15th, 1966 says, "Mr. Presley, to be precise, has made more than 20 films. But the minor variation this time is that he prefers racing cars and bachelorhood to the cuties, his crooning captives. There are, to be exact, Diane McBain, Deborah Wally, and Shelley Fabares as the charmers, vying for his hand. But our handsome hero, who loves his, and I apologize right now, Duesenberg, more than any dame, manages to sing 8 songs. Parentheses. The reviewer must have slept through the ninth, because for a 9. Win big road races and remain footloose and fancy free. I'll be back, he chants in one number, which should be a welcome hint only to those juveniles whose motors he starts racing.
I mean, there's 2 like good songs on this. Like we have All That I Am and Am I Ready? All That I Am is one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. I was messaging Tessa and I said, she's like, oh, this one's actually not that bad. And my thought is, I feel like when the co-stars were better, the movies tended to be better. So you think about like Roustabouts, he was his co-star was Barbara Stanwyck. Girl Happy, Spinout. Why do I feel like there's another movie with Shelley Fabares?
You just said Girl Happy. She's in Clam Bake too, I think.
Clam Bake. Well, we'll talk about the 2 we've seen. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
The 2 we've seen so far, like they're like better than the groups that we're talking about. So that's just my personal opinion. I think when we get to Spinout, my personal opinion is that it's better of the Elvis films, and I think he's got Nancy Sinatra, so it tends to be better when you got better co-stars. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. So our next one, guys, this is I feel like I got a lot to say about this one. Easy Come, Easy Go. Released March 22nd, 1967. So it's directed by John Rich, produced and distributed by Hal Wallace Productions, Paramount Pictures. Our cast includes Dodie Marshall, who I guess was in another one of the movies, because I just said that name. I guess she was in Spinout, but I don't know who she was in Spinout. And Pat Priest, Pat Harrington, Skip Ward, Les Lanchester, which, what are these names? Elaine Beckett and Frank McHugh. Right. Okay. I'll save my thoughts for after. And our log line is when Frogman Ted Jackson, which I didn't know his name was Ted. I would just watch this movie. His name was Ted? ? I had no idea.
Yeah.
So it was Frogman, I guess. When Frogman Ted Jackson discovers a sunken treasure on his last day of Navy life, he decides to go back as a civilian and make himself rich. Unfortunately, there are others after the booty, and the man with the swiveling hips has a fight on his hands. What the hell?
I know. Yes. So, and then just like Spinout, he's kind of got like a 2-career situation. So he's in the Navy. He's like what he said was a barnacle scraper, but then he diffuses bombs. But at the same time, he's like a nightclub entertainer, former nightclub entertainer, possibly future nightclub entertainer. Anywho, we start off, he's diffusing a bomb. There's like a yacht. There's some pretty girls on the yacht. There's this other dude. And they're like being nosy, watching him, blah, blah, blah. Ted, apparently his name is Ted, goes down to defuse the bomb, sees a little bit of a shiny something, and it's like, oh, treasure. Immediate thoughts.
And then he tries to find more information about the ship and the possible treasure on board. He has to trick this like go-go yoga girl, Joe, to give him the information he wanted. And there's some very weird like mid-60s stuff. We've got this weird artsy car, strange dancing, and Megan wrote, and don't get Tessa started on that yoga scene. Okay, guys. So in 2020, in 2022, I watched the Elvis movie. I'm enamored. I'm like, I have to learn everything. I have to know everything. I have to watch all of these movies. He made so many movies. I have to watch them. I watch, our classics. We got Let Me Tender. We got Jailhouse Rock. We got Blue Hawaii. I watched Loving You. I watched GI Blues. Like I was like, okay, these are great. These are good. Then I think I had watched like those ones. And Viva Las Vegas, I watched that
Okay.
too. And then I watched Easy Come, Easy Go because it was like available for free. And I got to the yoga scene and I just had to turn it off. I just couldn't do it. And I didn't even know at that time like really about like Elvis's spiritual searches and all that kind of stuff and how important that was to him. Um, Even if some of the Memphis Mafia members felt it was a little corny or whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know that. And I still was like, this is so bad. I have to turn it off. So I turned it off. And then I didn't watch another Elvis movie apart from those ones I had already seen that I thought were fine for 2 years. Oh, how could I forget King Creole? That was another one.
Yeah.
For 2 years, I didn't watch any until I watched it happen at the World's Fair with Diane last August. So this movie, plot wise, not good.
Ruined it. Ruined all
It's
other
done.
Elvis movies.
Ruined, kind of.
I felt like we had to watch this one like during a movie night. And I
Mhm.
felt like we were like strapping Tessa down to the table to force her to watch this.
I was like, please make it
Like
end.
she's like, and then she's asking us, she's like, how much longer? Is it almost over yet?
It's
We're like,
so
"We got, like,
bad.
45 more minutes. But
I
we
like
watched it,
prefer
and
the
you won't
harem
have to.
scarum is crazy.
She did. She does. At least you won't have to watch it, I feel like, anymore, unless you choose to.
I don't.
Okay. Anywho, after all that and the weird yoga scene, okay. So Ted and his friends, they decide that they're going to bring up the treasure to the surface. Somehow Joe tags along, and they're like, "Great, she's tagged along. Now we got to tell her what we're really doing," because they were keeping it a secret. So, and then, oh no, they go out to the place, and then the guy on the yacht, he shows up, and they're like, "Oh, darn, they foiled our plans, and then we can't bring the treasure up because we don't want them to see us."
Because it's illegal. Um, and then the guy takes their equipment. There's a physical fight. It's both on land and underwater. The underwater fight scene goes on entirely too long. That's my professional
Oh my
opinion.
gosh.
And
It's
it's
like
like, wow.
slow and painful to watch.
And nothing, like, we get it. Okay, they're fighting underwater.
Yeah.
There's threat of them running out of oxygen or whatever. They bring the treasure up finally. But womp womp, it is not worth very much at all. But then because they're good guys, they all pitch in and get Joe her art center. Yay.
Yay. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. So
I think you can tell them for our faces if you're watching, or the sound of our voice if you're listening, that I think as we go on, it's getting more and more frustrating.
yeah,
So,
like,
but
I
don't
can't-
worry, there's only like two more movies in this one and two more episodes after.
Yes.
Which I told her, I said at the end, we're gonna have to do like a bracket ranking. And we'll share. We'll do a bracket ranking system. I'll do one, she'll do one. And we'll
And
decide.
we'll have to explain our choices, I feel like.
Okay. I think so far we're gonna have a very similar bracket though.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I will say as a side note, when I was looking at like the release dates for this film and Double Trouble, I wasn't kidding. I think it was specifically Easy Come, Easy Go. I wasn't getting a definite release date. Like IMDb would say one release date, TCM would say another. IMDb is a little bit more specific. Like it was released in Japan before it was released in the United States. There was like multiple premiere dates, release dates in the US. So there was something really consistent.
But I guess, and then when did they film? So did they film Double Trouble before or after? I guess they filmed it.
So because our first behind the scenes thing is that this film was actually filmed, Easy Come, Easy Go was filmed just 3 weeks after Double Trouble had finished filming. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe it's
They like
just it's
in
not.
post production.
Maybe it's not after they finished film. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I have no idea.
It might have been like a post production thing.
Yeah,
One, I mean, maybe with all the water stuff, I don't know.
true.
Maybe it took longer. It's quicker. I don't know. Anywho, but
Whatever.
that's what happened in the behind the
Mhm.
scenes. Post production
And
probably took longer for one versus the other.
And so this movie, filming Easy Come Easy Go, was just not a good experience for Elvis. So this is from Girl Next Careless Love. He says, all that Elvis seemed to bring to the picture was an accumulation of resentment. When it came to the soundtrack, he simply turned the job of song selection over to Red, and he arrived uncharacteristically late on each of the first 2 days of shooting. And with a haircut that Larry Geller had given him at home against Wallace's explicit instructions. He was overweight. Wallace complained to the colonel, and the inky black color of his hair dye made it look like he was wearing a wig. The colonel offered no objections, but neither did he do anything to alleviate Wallace's concerns. And Wallace said something must be, quote, radically wrong with Elvis, and he didn't seem like himself. So, in a letter to the colonel, how Wallace said that, like, something's wrong with him because he's not, he doesn't seem to care. And at the beginning of his career, like, he was shown up early. He was on time. He was very serious about his movies and wanting to make it as an actor. And now he's like, whatever.
He's probably like, no thanks. Especially after talking about that, how Wallace is like basically using like the Presley picture funds all other pictures.
Yeah, to make like actual movies.
Yeah, exactly. About the yoga scene, not to bring up bad times for Tessa. I'm sorry. So Larry Geller, he had a perspective on this. And so it says, Larry Geller felt it was a direct insult to Elvis and Larry's beliefs. And only after the scene in which it was included, only after the scene in which it was included was shot did Elvis finally react. It was then, in Larry's account, that Elvis stormed into his trailer shouting, and I can't do it as good as Elvis, I'm sorry, because that son of a bitch, he knows he did it. He told those damn writers what to do, and he's making me do this.
And he is referring to the colonel there. So if you've ever read Larry's book, he has a very like negative opinion of the colonel, which is an interesting perspective and one that I think a lot of people share. And I just think it's interesting that he was like pinpointing to that scene in the movie when the colonel and like the guys are trying to like not have Elvis be so into this like spiritual stuff. They don't really get it. They don't really understand. They're burning the books. Like, so.
Yeah, because in this, like what Tessa just said, behind the scenes, like in his personal life, this is when they're starting to like push Larry out.
Yeah.
And get things back on track as they thought.
Yeah. And so then this is from Careless Love. It says, Easy Come, Easy Go had confirmed all of Hal Wallace's worst fears, feeling even to recoup its costs. And I thought this was interesting. So this was the last movie that Elvis did with Hal Wallace. So
interesting. So again, more soft review, more hard review. We got Variety 1967 said the word formula is too negative if applied to Elvis picks. Although, to be sure, a given storyline is simple, omitting of tune inserts and assured, and I tried to find critical ones. It was kind of hard. And assured of happy resolution, anyone who has seen similar films recognizes the superior quality of Presley films. The story makes sense. The songs are better and better motivated. Cast and direction are stronger. Production values are first state, I believe. A generation from now, Elvis picks will be film festival items, just as the Busby, Berkeley, Astaire Rogers, and Mae West picks are now. Like, they are soft.
Like, yeah, like Jailhouse Rock and like.
Yeah. But not like easy come, easy go. I'm sorry.
No, seriously. And then our negative review, I love that you let me read this. So the New York Times said, let's forgive Elvis Presley for easy come, easy go, a tired little color clinker that must have been shot during lunch hour. After all, the lad just got married. And why shouldn't he be just busting to claim his bride? Nobody, believe us, has wasted much time or even energy slinging together this picture.
Yep.
True.
So
now we get to Double Trouble, which
this is Tessa's movie, I feel like.
Okay, context. I grew up in England. It's set in England. It's very funny to me that they're doing all that. And I had no idea when we went to watch it that it was going to be like a British thing. I also thought it was about twins because the cover of the album has the two Elvises. And why is it called Double Trouble? I
was thinking about this actually. I think maybe because there's two sets of trouble.
I don't even remember.
Like there's we'll just get into the plot. We'll get into the plot and then
Okay. So this was released April 5th, 1967, and directed by Norman Taurog, produced and distributed by BCW and MGM. And our cast includes British, Annette Day, John Williams, and Yvonne Romaine. Our little log line is a teen heiress falls for an American rock singer in London. And this is like one of those movies where you're like, huh? Like this did not age well in the slightest.
No.
So
anyhow. Okay, so shocker, a new name. His name is Guy Lambert. Okay, so Elvis plays Guy Lambert. He's a nightclub singer. That's his only job in this one. I'll say that.
He's not
a race car driver. Yes, correct. Again, what else would he be? Nightclub singer. Okay,
sure.
This is where we get into like, that didn't age well. So there's this girl, Jill, played by Annette Day. She's like obsessed with Guy. Guy is kind of like on again, off again, I feel like, with this girl. And then eventually, blah, 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 they like hang out. And Elvis's character, Guy, goes to see her uncle. Lo and behold, she shows up. She's wearing like a schoolgirl outfit. Shocker. She's apparently a teenager. He didn't know that. His side.
It's just like when you think about it. First off, like, how is this a plot point? Like, ew.
Why is it a plot point?
Why is it a plot point? And then like, art imitates life? ? It's just maybe not correct. Okay. So Guy doesn't want to see her anymore once he finds out that she's underage, I guess. And he travels from London to Antwerp, and Jill finds this out, and then she takes her uncle up on an offer to go to a school near Guy, which is giving Priscilla moving to Memphis, but okay. So Guy realizes that Jill is following them, like his band, which it's another one where there's a band because, and they're on the same boat. And complicating matters, there's a pair of jewel thieves who've hidden smuggled diamonds in Jill's luggage. And I think one of the actors who's in this was an actor who's in the Beatles movie Hard Day's Night, like as the guy who's like trying to hijack them or whatever. If you've seen Hard Day's Night, I think you guys know who I'm talking about, and it's the same actor, so they were definitely trying to like hop off that. And there's some people trying to kill them, but also particularly Jill, our teenage girl,
heiress girl,
I guess.
So this is where I feel like the double trouble is, if that makes sense. So there's like, trouble here, they're trying to kill us, but then trouble here, we got these like thieves who want to smuggle diamonds, and that's why I'm like, maybe that's where the title came from.
Or maybe the trouble is that she's 17. That's the trouble.
It could be.
And the other trouble is that then he has people trying to kill him.
That could be it.
To me, that's the double trouble.
Two problems.
Yeah.
basically. Not that there's two people.
But
Yeah,
then why is
it's
the
not kissing
cover?
cousins. I don't
No.
know. I don't know. It was a bad style choice. Gives wrong,
No.
gives people wrong ideas. Anywho,
Mhm.
okay. There's a couple of cringe songs, I think.
Mhm.
One in particular would be Old MacDonald. There was
That's
no
in
need
this
for it.
movie?
Yeah, it's where were you?
Is it actually? I thought
Yeah,
that was
that's
in,
where they're like on the back of the truck with the
that's in
chickens.
this movie?
Yes. He's on the back of the
Oh.
truck with the chickens. She's like sitting next to him, and then he just
Oh.
starts singing Old MacDonald. Like there was no
Oh
reason
yeah, yeah,
at
yeah.
all. It doesn't add to the plot. There was no reason. He could have just gone on the truck and that was the end of the day.
Like
No,
none of
we
these
had to
songs.
sing Old MacDonald.
Oh yeah. Wait, I don't know. I guess I was thinking that was in like Roustabout or Sleep because in my head that's a carnival song. I don't really know. Um,
Hold on, there's a carnival in this one too.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm getting them confused. And then I love only
it's not
one girl, the
everybody.
one I got my arm around. I forgot about the
Yeah,
carnival.
that's yep.
Okay. Um, and at one point, Guy pushes a assassin into a well and kills him.
Mm.
And eventually they figure out who's behind the murder attempts. And spoiler alert, it was her uncle who wanted her
Yep.
inheritance. So hopefully none of my uncles ever do that to me. But at the end of the movie, there's like literally a countdown pretty much until she turns 18. And she's legal. So now they can be together. Yay. I guess. Like,
So
uh, this one's pretty bad. Like,
yeah,
really quite. Like, in
it's
terms of
not easy
age,
come easy.
poorly.
Yeah, but it's not. The plot's better than Easy Come Easy Go. Like I'm gonna give it a little leeway
Yeah,
there.
sure.
So okay. Again, behind the scenes stuff, much more interesting. So
Yes.
yes. Okay. So we always hear that Elvis never got to perform outside the country. He didn't really travel outside the country unless it was for the army. So he was a little disappointed that he couldn't go on location for this film. And then Baby Let's Play House, Charlie Hodge could see that Elvis was bitterly frustrated and not to be going to England. Everyone, and this is a quote from him, everyone else was shooting their pictures outside this country in different locations. He was the only one that wasn't leaving town. It was especially galling in Charlie's View, since in the early 1960s, Elvis, honest to God, kept Hollywood alive. Like we were saying that his pictures were the ones that were financing others.
Right. And then in Careless Love, Gronlich talks about how George Klein went out to LA to see Elvis and that he arranged for the group to go and see Jackie Wilson play. So this was some like positivity behind the scenes because Elvis
Yeah.
absolutely loved Jackie Wilson. And this quote from Careless Love says, the show was electrifying. Wilson, whom Elvis had recognized as a premier performer when he first saw him in Vegas in 1956, quote, I was under the table when he got through singing, was no less mesmerizing now. There were a number of prominent contemporary rock musicians in the audience, including members of the newly formed Buffalo Springfield and expatriate Elvis imitator P.F. Sloan. But it was James Brown that Elvis instantly sought out as soon as George told him that Brown was present and would like to say hello. George thought Elvis might stand up on the ceremony. What? Ugh. George thought Elvis might stand on ceremony, quote, but he got up and went over to Brown's table. Me and Richard went through the introductions and they go through some small talk. This is before showtime. And James Brown says, man, Elvis, you sure do sleep a lot. And Elvis almost fell on the floor laughing. He said, aw, James, you know how it is being a night person. And James said, I know, brother, and slapped Elvis's hand. In between sets, he finally got the opportunity to meet Jackie Wilson too and express his unreserved admiration for Wilson's talent. With what he had going for him, Elvis said there was no reason Jackie shouldn't be the number one singer in the world today, and he invited him out to the film set the following week. Larry Geller's particular memory of the meeting was that Elvis asked Jackie, quote, about his profuse sweating. Man, I'll tell you, Wilson replied, the chicks really dig that. Elvis said, how do you do it? Wilson grinned and said, hey, that's simple. He showed us a large bottle of salt tablets and then revealed his secret. Each night before a show, he'd swallow a handful of tablets, guzzle a few quarts of water, and then go on stage. Once he got moving, the sweat would wash off him like rain. Soon, Elvis started incorporating this trick into his weight loss regimen. It was dangerous, it depleted potassium and overtaxed the heart, but it produced one of Elvis's favorite things, an instant result with minimal effort.
So if you're interested in how he did that, there you go.
Yeah.
Also talking about kind of things I guess he was ingesting at the time. The prescription drug usage started to increase a little bit more as we move further and further into the 60s. Cliff Gleaves says, I was aware that the prescriptions that Elvis was taking, I did not know the names of the medications, were getting to affect his personality. I saw the change, be if it ever so subtle, slight touches of the kernel that were negative, senses of danger that was never there before. All of a sudden, the snake was down around his legs, and he did not know. If he had been aware, he would have someone get that damn snake off of him. During this period, I was taking pills too, mostly dextrin, I believe.
Dexedrine, yeah.
Dextrin. If I was tired, I just say, have you got any more of those red ones? Or you got any more of those pink ones? Sometimes he'd just grin and say, here's the bottle. I'll tell you this, Elvis didn't care if anyone else took them or not. He was getting off on them. He loved to sit there high and wiggle in the chair, just wiggle his legs and a big pitcher of ice water in front of him. He drank tons of water because you could see it. You could see it to hydrate him. Just sit there and watch TV. He didn't give a damn whether you did anything. He was going to do whatever he wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that last part, he didn't care what you did. He was going to do it anyway. I feel like also really resonates with the movies. Like, do what you want, make me do what you want, but I'm just going to, outside, I'm going to do what I want.
Right. And so in terms of reception, Variety, as per, is kind of, complimentary of this interesting movie. They said on April 5th, 1967, quote, Presley, as usual, gives a pretty fair account of himself despite what's handed him. And Presley delivers in customary style, entirely at home in his character, which I'd say, like, you can kind of sense the discomfort, I think, of how he doesn't want to be making this movie. And you see this in a lot of the movies from around this time. So I don't know where they're seeing, that he's entirely at home in his character. Clearly they don't know my man like I do.
Apparently not. Maybe they have to go watch King Cruel again and then watch this one.
Right.
As for the New York Times, this is from May 25th, 1967. They said it was a waste of European scenery, which is ironic because they didn't actually shoot in Europe, but still.
Right.
I know. But they also continue to say Double Trouble is pretty fair and far between than the last three Presley clinkers, with Elle and Annette Day as a cute heiress scooting across the continent to elude her murderous uncle, John Williams. The studio photographed action, most of it very silly, has blended rather neatly with the authentic back.
Which I know it wasn't. I mean, I guess we have different standards because it's, a different time and their technology was not as good, but
it's nicer than the other ones.
Yeah, I like the one we first went to watch it, and Diane was like, Tessa, this is your movie. And I was like, what do you mean? And I had no idea that it was like a whole British plot point. And I feel like that's really like it's playing off again of the Beatles and their success and what they were doing at the time. And almost in a way it's sad because it's like Elvis wasn't doing any of the things that even in the movies he was doing. In the movies, he's going to London and he was doing he was in a band and he had other people. And something my mom always mentions is that I believe it's John Lennon who said it was one of the Beatles for sure, that they said that they always felt badly for Elvis because he was by himself when they had each other to go through it with.
Talking about like the ups and downs of careers getting started and everything.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I think we can both agree that Spinout was our favorite.
Of these four, absolutely.
Out of these four, yes. So there was that. I think we're gonna start struggling a little bit more. But
what are our next ones? We've got like Clam Bake, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
Trouble with Girls. No. We have Stay Away Joe, Speedway, and Live a Little, Love a Little. I have not seen any of those.
I like Speedway.
Okay. That's the one with Nancy Sinatra. So I am interested to see that.
All right. Wish us luck.
I mean, it's something. That's for sure. So let us know which one is your favorite. If it's not Spinout, I think you're wrong. So
especially if it's Easy Come, Easy Go and not Yoga Scene.
Oh, don't play with me.
Yeah, she'll come after you.
It's so bad. I think I just took like such a visceral against it, like such a visceral feeling against it that like I actually had to turn it off. Like I didn't turn off Song of the Shrimp. Like that didn't bother me.
It's your jam.
Yeah, now it's like my jam, but it's my guilty pleasure song. But
yes,
you know, imagine like you're a new Elvis fan and someone's like, oh, watch this Elvis movie. It's good.
Yeah.
Like I know I really loved Elvis because I'm watching these movies.
Exactly. And I think through all
illegally, but I'm watching them.
I think through all of this, like I have a new perspective because I'm trying to think about it, the plot point. Like I'm not just trying to be like, oh, look, it's Elvis. I think because we're doing behind the scenes stuff, I'm having to think, okay, what is he going through? What is he thinking while he's doing this? And it just makes it harder and harder to watch.
Yeah, like I think it's really hard for me to separate what is going on in Elvis's life and his like disdain for making these movies from the actual movie itself. Because I feel like if I didn't know some of the things that were happening behind the scenes, I maybe would be able to like, I don't know, like the movies better. But
maybe
I don't know. I mean, they're not really very high quality, and it's sad when you see like King Creole and you see the potential of his acting and like the sincerity of how badly he wanted to be a serious actor. And then you watch him sing Dog's Life, you know, it's like,
exactly. It's frustrating. It's sad.
Yeah.
But
especially like he had such an amazing voice at that time. Like I wish he was recording better music.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
So it's why I love the 68 special so much, because it's like the end of all
it's the redemption of it all.
Yeah. And then we get Change of Habit, which is my corny fave.
It's better. It's better than Easy Come, Easy Go.
I mean, Easy Money. It's better.
Well, we shall bring you another 4 movies next week.
Yes. All right. Thanks for listening. That's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Chronicles of the King podcast.
If you love what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps bring the King's story to life. You can follow us on social media at the Chronicles of the King for updates, upcoming series, and more. We'd love to hear your input and any of your favorite Elvis moments. Until next time, keep rocking and rolling, and we'll be back soon with more stories from Elvis's extraordinary life. With TLC, we'll see you on the next episode of the Chronicles of the King.